Hi, this is Jack Downs, here to talk to you a little bit about magazines. And actually, you can see me now because I want to show you some magazines. And also tell you that as the magazine project kicks off, what I would be doing if we were meeting in person would be, I would be having you go down to 114, where there's a huge number of magazines all over the place, and be wading through them and looking at magazines. Now, I can't do that. However, I'm really hoping that you have access to some magazines wherever you are. And I want you over the next couple of days start to gather them up, find as many magazines as you can, and these are some of the things that you're looking for. You're looking for magazines that have a variety of covers, all right? However, we will see that magazines always have some kind of a logo, branding, and then some kind of cover lines on them, which are indicating the stories that are there. You're looking for magazines that have a variety of bindings. This is what we call a perfect binding, which is a flat binding. Some of them are flat, but they're still very narrow. Some of them are what we call saddle stitch bindings. They're stapled bindings. So the magazine lies flat, yet it's less book-like. You're also looking for magazines that have a variety of spreads. So what are spreads? Well, all this stuff, by the way, you'll see when we get into magazines, there's a whole bunch of terminology. I'm going to give you a glossary. There's a lot of magazine terms that are magazine specific. Same way that we had to learn about the names of parts of a newspaper, you need to learn about the names of parts of a magazine and the jargon that's used. In fact, I'm going to be having some kind of a exercise or quiz on that. You'll see one thing we talk about is the gutter, which is the space down the middle between pages. Okay, so actually not the gutter, the alley. In newspapers, we talked about gutters. There are gutters in between individual sticks of copy. For instance, here, here, here. There are gutters, but the big gutter is called an alley in a magazine. So we're going to look also for spreads. Spreads are two pages that go together. Spreads that cross the alley. So those are true spreads. So an example would be, this is kind of one. The actual text and the images, though, don't cross that. So it's not a true spread. It is a spread, but it's not a true spread. It's one that these are not actually on the same sheet of paper necessarily. Okay, but give you an example of a true spread. Here's one from National Geographic. So that photograph actually goes right through. Are these actually the same sheet of paper? Maybe, maybe not. There's ways to fake it, but it still is a true spread. Okay, what else do we talk about? So once you get a bunch of magazines together, you're going to have to do some things with some magazines. You have to start paying attention more to magazines and parts of a magazine. Start to think about that. So those terms I just mentioned, some of those will be something you'll have to know and use. Also, you will look at how text is different in magazines. In general, what we think of as the body copy, the main text the articles are in, is larger, and the leading is larger also. So there's more space and fewer words per inch in a magazine. The resolution is higher. In other words, everything is clearer and crisper. The flow of the copy is different, and we do relax some of the more rigid rules we have in newspapers, where we talk about exactly how headlines are used, exactly how photos are used. We tend to put more obstructions in the text, but not always. In fact, some magazines' pages look very similar to newspaper pages, and some don't. It depends a lot on the magazine. Yet, there tend to be, we will do things that in newspapers we would have said would have maybe, we would have worried it would have slowed the reader. It would have been an obstacle to the reader. But that's less of a problem in magazines. Why? Well, we assume that with magazines, it's a longer lasting product. You keep it around for some time. You have more time to spend with it, more time for it to communicate to you. And it's not as hurried an operation as a newspaper is. So If something is a little harder to read in some ways because there's more obstacles in the text, but those have their own form of communication, well, then maybe it's not so bad. Something else that's different, which I don't think we'll spend much time talking about, but you should know, is that there are some magazines have a different view of ethics in, for instance, the way we edit photographs. Honestly, I believe that any magazine or newspaper should, when they're doing things to photographs that remove them from reality, should tell the reader that is happening. But if you look at most covers of magazines, those images can be highly retouched, so they don't really represent reality that much at all anymore. The images, the people that you see there may not exactly look that way at all. So there's some issues, some different feelings about ethics. Also, look through any major magazine, and you often see ads opposite stories, so on a facing page, on a spread, which are using like some of the same colors, maybe some of the same fonts, maybe some similar images. There seems to almost be communication between the advertising side and the editorial side, and that we see that a lot more in magazines than in newspapers. In an ideal world, the advertising side of a publication is kept separate. There's a wall between it and the editorial side, the news side, the content side. That church and state, sometimes you'll see it, heard it referred to as that way, or a wall. That wall in many magazines is much flimsier than it is in newspapers. In fact, in all publications these days, that wall has been under assault. But we definitely see, if you look through, you can see obvious examples of how advertising content is influencing editorial content in magazines even more than in newspapers. So those are some of the differences. So gather up some magazines, and there'll be some future stuff about them, and start to think about magazines. And let me tell you about the assignment you're going to have in magazines, and I'm going to do that by switching to my screen now. Okay, your first assignment related to this magazine project, and this is a bit of an overview document, is actually just a little text document that you have to create, so you don't have to worry about getting to the virtual lab and all that stuff yet, but you will, and you'll have a different template, a magazine template, as we go forward. What I want you to do is I want you to go download and look through the folder of content that you're going to use in this magazine project. So I'm giving you a lot of images and a lot of stories, as usual, and cut lines. And you will of course find that in the resource area on Moodle, and you will download it as it is, again, a zip file. More and more zip files now, so I have big chunks of content to be giving you, and the zip file will look something like that, and you will go ahead and go into the zip file, open with, copy the folder out of it, or you just double click on it and extract it if you prefer, if you want to use some of that software for that. Okay, so what do we got here? There is a lot of images and stories. You'll see a calendar file. You'll see a story about an art exhibit. You'll see a high school play. You'll see a couple of things from Montreal, arts kinds of things. Nothing in here is related to the virus. Nothing is here supposed to be. This magazine assumes a virus-free world. Again, you've got enough virus stuff going on. This is outside of that. Okay. You'll see some V-Day stuff. You'll see Warhol stuff. So this is arts. This is music, visual arts, other arts, content. So you know that, first of all. There is a magazine template in here. You can ignore that for now. I may put some other content in here too. I may make up a new zip folder for you and add some more, but at least this stuff will be in it, maybe even more. So I want you to look through this stuff, look through the images, look through the stories, and start to get a feel for what the content is like. And then based on that content, so the content is king here, not some imaginary, you're not making some imaginary magazine that's starting from zero. No, you are making a magazine based on this content. But yet you can interpret that content in your own way. So that's what your goal is. I want you to review the content, think of the content, and list 3 to 5 adjectives that you would use to describe your magazine theme. What is the theme of the magazine? Finish this sentence. My magazine will appeal to people who, I want you to actually write this out. I want you to say who is your target audience in age, gender, income, geography. You may use some general information here, but try to imagine a target audience. I want you to brainstorm by yourself or with friends if you have people around you, some magazine names. The actual text will be used on the cover in the banner or logo. We tend to call the words on a magazine a logo. Now think about all the magazines you know, and the ones I just showed you earlier. What I had Sci-Fi, I had National Geographic, I had Rolling Stone, I had Beauty. I didn't show you that one, but I had that one here. And think about all the other magazines you know. How many words are in their names? Often just one, sometimes two, three, well, maybe if they're short. And they might be represented then as more just as an acronym or something, okay? Which is okay. I want you to come up with 3 magazine names. Again, thinking about them being frequently just one word, or maybe two words that work together in some way and are short. 3, I don't know, 3 is an awful lot. If it's 3, you better be thinking of using it as an acronym or something, okay? So come up with those names. I want you to pick 2 type families that you think might be good choices for the magazine in general, for use in headlines and body copy, and maybe on the logo. So the logo, the text, the branding text on the cover, which says the name of your magazine. That text, that font is important and sends a theme and a message and a mood, right? Good. Well, when you pick type, you're kind of saying that. Now, that type might be just used there, or it might be used inside, or a version of it, as the text that we read in stories, and perhaps as the text that is used in headlines. There are magazines that have one type family and use it on the logo and in the headlines and in the copy, and there's some that use a handful of them. Usually not too many more than 3, 4, 5 altogether, even in counting cut lines and cover lines and so on too. I'm asking you to pick 2, all right, that are going to apply to the headlines, the body copy, and the logo. I want you to go back to the things you've already writing in Word or Google Docs or whatever. I want you to use those 2 typefaces in this assignment. On paper, this is kind of like an on-paper assignment. You will make a Word document or a PDF to submit for it, of course, but I want you to use those. I want you to print this assignment, and it says, be ready to discuss in class. All right. You know, I may have some kind of discussion related to this. I'm not sure. We'll see. If nothing else, be ready to discuss with me if I ask you questions about it. So you were getting a general overall theme, some names, some feelings about this magazine, and some type being chosen here too. That's what's going on in this assignment. Then the final project, which is going to be due in our last class, is going to be fine-tune the magazine theme and name and type choices, decide on the name, create the cover logo, create at least 3 paragraph styles. We'll talk about how to make paragraph styles. Create a minimum of 5 pages using no more than 3 fonts overall. Cover 2-page spread, crossing the alley, a 2-page spread that respects the alley. These will be used bleed and trim. We'll talk about what that is. And then extra credit, maybe make a table of contents on page 3, maybe make some ads, maybe make other things not listed here, but if you want to make more pages and do more stuff, you can do so as extra credit in this imaginary magazine project that you're doing. There's going to be this will be through the rest of the semester now. There'll be more instruction as we go along, but there's going to be a lot of independent work, as everything's independent work now, and there'll be some other assignments happening, so it's not just this that you're doing. So keep that in mind too.